Back in the basement again today to talk about chains and how I load them on the bar. Now, this might sound like a pretty dumb topic to cover, but I actually went through a process to get here. So maybe through my idiocy, you can figure out a better way or just skip to the end to see what the best product would be for you, because I've spent my money on 4 different products up to this point. Now, when I first bought chains, I went through Rogue because they sell them as a kit. I was buying some other items, so the shipping wasn't that big of a deal. Shipping on chains can be annoying because they tend to be a heavier item and they're not that expensive for themselves, but if you're shipping things that weigh hundreds of pounds potentially, depending on how many chains you're getting, you have to pay for that to get to your door, and it's not that fun to incur that cost. So try to lump it in or try to offer free shipping if you can find a company that does that. Now, I first got these Rogue kits. So it came with these 1/4 inch leader or loader chains. And what you have is a 2.5 pound chain that has a small carabiner on it. And the thought process with these is you loop them around your barbell, you use the carabiner to make a loop. I'm gonna go do that now. And then you get your heavier duty chain, and you can then mount this at a point where hopefully the chain is going to slightly touch the bottom. You're gonna get a little bit of drag at the end. In this case, I loaded them too high. And that's one of the issues you're going to have with this system, or at least I did, meaning I have to take this off and potentially adjust this loop to make it bigger, or take off the carabiner that's on my chains currently and move it to a different link. When I do that, it might not necessarily give me an even loading pattern with this weight. So I like to keep the carabiner in the middle of these if possible and adjust the mounting point. That way I'm getting the full contact every single time. But again, I have to play around with this with every single movement I do, depending on where the bar's mounted, depending on what bar I have, depending on if I'm doing bench or whatever other movement, overhead press. It just gets to be a little bit of an annoyance. Speaking of things that are annoying, another problem I had with this setup is I have metal on metal here. So the chain is right on the sleeve, and this does have the tendency to move some. So it can eat up your sleeves, which I try to avoid. Now, obviously the fix here is to go ahead and get a collar and put this on, because if you don't have a collar, number one, it will scratch up your sleeve, but also number two, it does have the tendency to completely slide off of this sleeve if you are not completely even when doing that movement, or even at the bottom of a movement when you're taking some of the weight off of the chain, the top loader chain can move a lot more. So you're gonna wanna lock it in. Again, all things that are doable, and if you're buying a kit, this can definitely be done, but I am all about convenience, and this was not very convenient for me, so I looked for other options. So let's get this guy out of the way and move on to my next logical step or progression in this chain game, if you will. The next one is I looked into a product from AbMat. I thought this might be helpful a little bit, because what this does is it actually offsets where the chains are loaded. Now, coming into this setup particularly, I ran into an issue right away that I just didn't think about. And that is, if you take a look at the way these are marketed, they go on the sleeve pointing inward. But the problem with that is, number one, if you have groove sleeves and you don't like that noise, you know what one of the problems is. That does not affect me. But I can't even get this thing all the way in because this loader portion of it is hitting my J-cup. And then while in use, it could potentially clip my uprights. It could clip my safeties. So it's really unusable in this way on this bar. Now, obviously, if you have a longer bar like the CB4 I show in some of the clips here, it's going to push the weight out further. It's not going to be a problem. If you have a thicker collar, it might not be an issue. Depending on your J-cups, might not be an issue. Depending on your rack, might not be an issue. But for me, it is an issue. So it is unusable in this current form, at least on this bar and in this rack. So an easy switch to this, as I try not to murder your ears, is to just switch it around. But that kind of defeats one of the niceties of this, of being loaded on first. You don't have to worry about it, taking it on and off if you're going to change weights, warm up, whatever the case may be. You put this on at the very beginning and it is always on. In this case, if you're going to adjust the weight, you would have to completely take the chains off and then take this portion off. But in this setup, it does stick out, so it's not going to clip anything. But we run into another issue. If we're just using the heavier chains up front, again, as is, well, I like to keep it right in the middle, you'll see that this is too short. So we need a way to adjust it. One way we can adjust is, again, move the carabiner to another link here so it's dragging on the floor, an annoyance to me. Or you might even use this in conjunction with your loader straps, and then from here, sync up your bigger chains. And that is almost a perfect setup, in my opinion, in terms of the length. Maybe go like a link lower. But again, now I'm adding multiple products here and just daisy chaining things together. all of which have to be adjusted depending on the movement, the exercise, the bar, whatever. It is more of an annoyance. I will say what saves these heavy hangers, and the reason I still have them here, is because these are fantastic for band work, because again, these hang away from the weights and it's easy to set up. Again, depending on which kind of rack and bar you're using, you might have to face them out. You might not be able to put them on the inside of the collar, but for band work, these are really unmatched in my opinion. So if you're looking for something that can do bands and chains, these might be your best bet. Now, in terms of cost of these heavy hangers, they run $85. I think Basement saves you 10% off anything AbMat. I do believe they're currently sold out anyway, so even if you want them, you can't buy them. But that was an option that I tried. But for me, again, the convenience just wasn't there, and I am all about convenience and time. So from the heavy hanger, I moved on to my boy, Dave Tate. He has these easy straps or easy loaders. It's a big, heavy duty, canvasy type material. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's probably some sort of canvas, but it's really reinforced. Same kind of material that my safety straps are made out of. They're rated for a ton of weight, but they have all of these different mounting points. In fact, one end goes on the bar. You're then left with 4 other mounting points here, where you could then take your chains, depending on where you want to be, and connect them to the appropriate point to give you, in this case, that's perfect. That's right where I would want my chains, and a nice easy setup. And again, quick access to those points. So depending on what you're doing, where you want the chains, you can adjust within those 4 different spots. Now, while this is really nice and it worked well, it did still have some things that bugged me, namely that the point of connection on the barbell is still metal. So metal on metal, so it could mar up the sleeves. And this one in particular, I did find if you didn't lock it behind a collar, it fell off almost every single time. I wish I had the clip. I think I deleted it because I don't save anything because I'm a big idiot, as I've already mentioned. But like as this loads on the ground, I found that this lifted up a ton and it would just keep shifting over. And I had this fall off almost every time I used it without a collar on it. So that was kind of a no-go for me. So this was like a nice upgrade, but it wasn't the best solution that I've found. So let me go ahead and take this off. And from here, what I ended up doing is, in my opinion, upgrading to a Spud Ink strap. This is called their looper strap. So it loops onto the barbell, again, made of like a fabric-y material. I'm assuming it's canvas. Spud Ink does a lot of stuff from straps and all that. So I'm confident in how much this thing can handle. It's a little bit of a thinner material for sure, but haven't had any issues in using this for the past couple of years. I like this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not metal on metal. It's really easy to get on. And it has a ton of mounting points. So where the Elite FTS ones had like 4, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different points potentially where you can mount a chain on. So a ton of options no matter what lift you're doing. And again, it's not going to mar up the sleeve. And I've actually found that it doesn't really move on the sleeve, even if you don't put it behind a collar. So this has been great for me because as you can see in the clips that I show you, again, I'm using this outside of the collar. It's very easy on off and leaves the sleeve protected. And again, the nice thing is I don't have to adjust anything on this bad boy because I have so many potential different points of options that when I clip it on here, I'm getting just about a perfect rack. Now I can adjust this as needed. Let's go down one lower. And I'm dragging a little bit. And from here, I can actually mount either other chains to the looper strap or other chains to the chain itself that's already on here and just figure out the best way around it. Now, talking about price points, I mentioned that the AbMat heavy hangers are around $85. These ones are around the same price shipped. They're on Amazon for like $77, but I think that includes or does not include the $10 to ship it. The Easy Straps from Elite FTS are actually the cheapest at around $62. I don't know what shipping and tax are, but bottom line, you're probably looking at spending somewhere between $70 to $80 for these if you're looking at one of these options. For me, the Spud Ink one is the best option just because of the convenience of all the different mounting points, the fact that it does not have to be behind a collar, at least in my experience, and also it's the only one that really doesn't mar up the sleeve. It's not metal on metal. And that, my friends, is how I choose to hang my chain. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. As always, thanks for watching and stay big.